Hey guys, welcome to Indie Game Hustle. My name is Charles, and in this video, we're going to continue with, of course, the platforming game. And what we want to do here is reduce the health of both our little enemy here on the left and the one on the right. Now, let's just take a look at where we currently were. Let's see here. So, if they hit us, we basically lose health. And so we want to basically do the same thing because now there is no health for these guys and they need to also lose health. So it's actually pretty easy, and let me go ahead and see if I can get us through that. But before that, you might notice that I'm using a darker themed Unity here. And so in order to change that, you're going to need the version of Unity 2019.4.8F1. And so that's a new feature. So in order to change it, just head over to Edit, Preferences, General, and head over to Editor Theme and change it from Personal to Professional. All right, cool, pretty simple. All right, so let's go ahead and get this going here. So it's kind of three things that we want to do. The first thing, we want to set up our health bar for the enemies. The second, we want to make sure that the health bar is facing the camera at all times. And then third, we want to trigger the health bar to be visible only when we're close to the enemy. Okay. All right. And we're going to just do this really simple. So, all right. So the first thing we need is a canvas created for the health of the enemies. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my mechanics. I'm going to right click on mechanics. I'm going to head over to create an empty. And then on this empty, I'm going to go ahead and name this health. Okay. And then in this health, I'm going to create a UI canvas. And then when I do the canvas, I'm going to leave that just like that. And I'm going to go over to canvas and I'm going to change this to world space. And then I'll change this pixel reference to 1, I guess. All right, cool. All right. So if you were to zoom all the way out here, you'll see that that's our canvas there. So I'm going to take this here, the rect tool, and I'm going to take this just like this, and I'm going to bring it all the way down just like so. And I'm going to hit the F key so I can zoom in, and I'm going to get out of ISO mode into perspective. And I'm just going to continue to bring this puppy all the way down until it's the size that we need. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the W key and move this here in place right over our enemy's head. Cool. All right, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that and move that right kind of where we need it, right over the head of the enemy. And it looks pretty good so far. So the next thing I want to do is put in a panel. So I'm going to right click on canvas. I'm going to go down to UI. I'm going to go to panel. And this panel is going to represent our health bar. Very similar, just like what we did with our player. So with this panel, I'm going to select the rect tool. And let me change something. Actually, I don't want to rotate the canvas. So that was my mistake. So I don't want to rotate that. So let me just go ahead and move it into a general space over the player, over the enemy. And then again, I'm going to go ahead and create that panel. All right, cool. And then I'll just go ahead and move that panel in place just like that. Now I have the panel selected. I'm going to head over here where it says rect transform, and I'm going to select this here. And then I'm going to hit in the center, and then I'm going to do an alt select so to center it as well. All right, cool. All right, and so I'm going to also make it smaller, and I think that's probably about the width that is fine for me. And I'm going to select the canvas and just kind of move it up just a little bit. And another thing I think I'll do is go ahead and just make the canvas universally like a little smaller, just like that. Cool. And go ahead and move that just like so. All right, cool. All right, so we have where our enemy's health is going to be. And this is just going to be a representation of the health for this enemy. Now, we're going to have health for the enemy, but what we can do for some enemies, maybe they don't have a health bar. Maybe they only require like one hit. So you just hit them and they get hurt and they die. But for these enemies, I think we're just going to go with a health bar because I think it's just good to know how to make health bars and whatnot. So, all right. So the next thing we want to do is mess with the panel. So the first thing I'm going to do is change my source image. Now, right now it's selected as some type of background image that's probably built in, but that's okay. We don't want to change that. What I'm going to do is select this square, but if you don't have that square, which I'm sure if I covered that with you before, but basically I'm going to select this square. I'm going to select this square, and this square is just a texture type, and it's a sprite, and it's a 2D or UI sprite. And so to change it, you would just select it. Because I think when you import it, it's going to come in as like default or something like that. So just change that to 2D UI and then go down here and select apply. All right. And we'll probably come across a lot of this type of stuff in the future when we're messing with like textures and all types of stuff. But for now, let's just keep it real basic. All right, cool. So that's our panel. I'm going to make my panel green and I'm going to make it completely solid. Just like so. All right, so that's going to be that there. All right, and I'm going to change the image type to filled, and I'm going to change the radial to horizontal. And I think I'll leave the fill origin to be left for now. We'll change it if we need to. I have a feeling we might need to change it, but we'll see. All right, cool. All right, so far so good. So let me just go ahead and name this panel, and I'm going to call it the H bar. Right? And so that's going to be our health bar. And so what I'm going to do is click on the health right here, and I'm going to add a attribute UI component. And just like before, we're going to change this. So the first thing we want to change is the target. So we're going to change it to game object, and we're going to move the character right here, the parent, into that slot. And then we're going to select the attribute that we want to affect. So it's going to be the health. All right. And so now what we're going to do is we're not going to be using any icons or anything like that here. So the only thing we really need to put in here is the fill value. Okay. So I'm going to change this and move this panel H bar. I'm going to move that to the fill image. Okay. And then I'll leave the smooth transition, all this stuff. I'm going to leave this kind of default. Let's just make sure everything is working properly. All right, cool. All right, so now that we have the enemy set up, we need to reduce the enemy's health. And to do that, our player needs to be set up. All right, so to do that, we need to ensure that the player's weapon is going to be these particular ones here. So if you select your weapon on your player, so I'm doing that by going to the player and I'm going to draw weapon and then to actions. And then you can just see what weapon your player has. And then you just select it. And of course, when you select something here, it shows up in the project folder. Now, if you have a different weapon, that's fine. But I would suggest moving your weapon into a folder that you can get to. I kind of was messing with this a little bit already. So I have these listed here. But if you don't, just go ahead and create your weapons or duplicate your weapons and move them into like your characters folder. All right, so I'm going to select this base weapon temp and just make sure it's the one that we're going to be utilizing in the base weapon shield. And then in terms of the attacks, so if I select the weapon, and you can see here, what we need to do is change the clips, the melee clips. Okay. So what I've already done actually for my weapon is get rid of all of those attacks we previously had. And so what you would want to do is select one of the clips, and you can actually just reduce it by removing it from the selection here, just like so. So for instance, if I want to add one, I can just hit the add button. And if I want to subtract it, you can select it and then hit minus. For me, what I want to do is just make sure that I only have 3 attacks for this player. Now, in the future, we can have different attacks where maybe if he's in the air, he can, hit down. If you hit forward, those types of things. But I think right now I'm thinking just more simple. So I want to just make sure they have at least the 3 basic attacks. Now, if you're using the previous attacks, the ones that were built in with the game creator examples, what you're probably going to want to do is duplicate those. Now, if you remember, the only way to duplicate a melee clip is to actually select the melee clip and go to where it says duplicate. When you hit duplicate, it's going to wait a second, and then it's going to create that duplicate. That's going to be the proper way to do it, okay? So go ahead and do that, and then eventually move those clips into a separate folder so we can have our own unique clips. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. All right, cool. All right, so we have our weapon, we have our clips here. So let's go ahead and actually change the attack. All right, so my attack 1 on hit, that's where we're going to reduce the enemy's health. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit add action, and I'm going to go to stats, change attribute. And what I'm going to do is change this from player to evoker, and I'm going to change this to health. And of course, the operation is going to be subtract. And now we want to subtract health from this enemy. Cool. So what we're going to do is make this go to, I don't know, we can do something like 40. I don't know, maybe like 30. No, let's go like 20. All right, cool. We'll do 20. All right, so for the first hit, we can do 20. And then we'll select the next attack. And if you want, you can actually select an action and hit this button here, and you can actually copy it temporarily. We'll go into the next attack, and we'll just hit paste. And so it'll have that information there. Cool, and we can make this attack to be maybe a little less. So the first attack, if you hit, is going to be 20. Maybe the second one can be 10, and the third one can be 5, or even higher. It just depends. All right. So I'm going to copy this one, and then I'm going to paste it, and then I'll just do 5. All right, cool. All right, so the first attack is going to be worth 20, 10, 5. All right, cool. All right, so far, so good. So now let's actually test to see if this works. I'm going to hit play. All right, so right off the bat, there's something wrong. We're missing the health bar. So let's verify what's going on. All right, so we're missing our health bar, and that's okay. So let's take a look at the actual enemy and see if we can troubleshoot this right now. So I'm going to select the health of the enemy here. All right, and I'm looking and seeing what's going on. So everything looks fine here. Let's select our enemy and see if there's anything missing. Ah, yes, there is. So our enemy, the reason why the health is not showing is because the enemy, or all these different attributes, they don't know where to pull the health from. The enemy currently doesn't have any stats, so we have to add some stats to our enemy for that to work. So we simply got to go to add component directly on the character enemy here, the game object. Go to add component. We're going to type in the word stat. It's going to be stats UI, I believe. Actually, no, it won't be stats UI. It's just going to be simply stats. So right below it. Great. And so these are going to be the stats here. Now, if we want to change the health of this particular enemy, we can do that. We can change the max health. Right now it's base. It's a base value. But we can change that and say we want this guy to be 75 instead of 100 or 50 or something else. So for now, let's just say it's 150, right? So I'll put it at 150, and let's verify that this is working. All right, so you can see the green bars there. So I'm going to walk up and hit this guy. All right, and I think it's reducing. It looks like it is a little bit. I'm just going to keep hitting them until it's gone down. And as you can see, the green bar is definitely reducing, and that's nice. All right. All right, until it's gone, right? All right, so, and as you can see here as well, the stats is reducing here as well. All right, great. So that's working properly. But what I want to do with this is I want to add a trail to it because I want to kind of see it kind of reduce as it's going down. So what I'll do is go ahead and go to the panel H bar. I'm going to do a control, let's do a control D. And then I'm just going to go H bar trail. And then I'm going to move it above it. And then we're going to change the color to red. Just like so. All right. And then what we want to do is go actually on this H bar trail, we want to add another component. And what we want to do is add a attribute component. And it's going to be the attribute UI. It's pretty much the same one we're using for health. But all we're doing is using this to kind of display like an effect. When you lose health, it's going to kind of reducing. So what I'm going to do is drag this into the fill image area, and then I'm going to do a smooth transition down. Okay. And let's just see how that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Actually, before I hit play, is there anything that I'm missing? Yep. Missing this right here. So we need to make sure the target is set. So we're going to select the game object, and we're going to move the enemy into there, and we're going to set it to health. Perfect. So that should work. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the enemy. All right, so it looks like it is reducing. It's just not reducing the direction that we want, but that's okay because I think I have a pretty good fix for that here in a moment. All right, so, but it's definitely reducing. And if you notice that there's a red delay, if I get the camera straight, we'll definitely be looking at switching our camera up soon. As you can see, there's a red delay, and it's a nice little effect. So I kind of like that. All right, cool. All right, perfect. All right, so the next thing that I want to do is make sure that this health is facing the camera at all times. And there is a way to do that. It's called Billboard. So Billboard, I don't know all the technical ways or how it works specifically, but it's basically getting the camera, it's facing whatever the direction the camera is facing at all times. So to do that, what I'm going to do is show you a website, which is Game Creator's website, and they have something called the Hub. Game Creator has this site, and it's called the Hub, and it's really awesome because a lot of different Game Creator users, like myself, they generally will create additional actions and additional things like additional triggers and all types of just very useful things that Game Creator itself doesn't already come with. So people will create them and they'll put them on this hub place for you to download. Now, there's all types of things here. You can search for it, but as you can see, there's something called latest updates, and you can explore the different categories. And these ones here are just the most recently updated, or at least the most recently uploaded to the website. And you can explore the categories this way. So as you can see, there's different categories for actions, conditions, modules, and triggers. All right, and I have a couple up here, but the one that we're going to use is going to be called Simple Billboard UI. Now, if for any reason, of course, I recently put this up here, but if it's not going to, I'm sure if you're looking at this a year from now or whatever, it may not be listed right here on the front. So what you can do is hit up the search area here and type in Billboard. And as soon as you even type in the word bill, it's going to start putting it right here. So you just select it. And as you can see, we have Billboard here. So all you would need to do is actually just hit the download button. And once you download it to your computer, what we would do is put that in our game project. Now you can put it in any particular project that you actually want, or any particular folder that you want. So I would recommend creating a folder called scripts and putting those directly in that folder there. Okay. All right, so let's take a look back at our project. So now in my project, I already have this set. So what I'm going to do is go to my scripts folder. And as you can see, I have it listed here. All right. So all you need to do is leave it here. There's nothing else for you to do. All right. So at that point, now what we need to do is head over to our actual health here, this particular health here, and we can select canvas. I believe we can either select canvas or health. I'm going to select canvas, and I'm going to add a trigger component. And then what I'm going to do is select change trigger, and then I'm going to select at the bottom where it says custom UI, and it's going to have Billboard script. All right, great. So now all we need to do is select this for the main camera. We're going to move our main camera and put it in here just like so. Perfect. All right, so there's our main camera. All right, and so now it should automatically face whatever camera you put here. Now you don't have to use any actions or anything. This is actually a pretty simple script. It could have been used as just a simple script without it connecting and using like triggers, but I wanted to do it this way so people who are using Game Creator maybe for the first time and they're not familiar with how scripts work, but this is an easy way to approach it. Now let's go ahead and hit play. And let's see if it's actually working. So if I turn the camera, as you can see, the health bar is facing me no matter what. So that's cool. And that's kind of the effect that I wanted to go for with this. All right, great. So now if I were to attack him, you see, all right, cool. And so now we're good to go. Perfect. All right, so now that that's working the way we want, let's go ahead and do one more thing. So with this, we have created a health bar for our enemy. We've created added a billboard script so that it faces the camera. Now, what I don't want, however, is the health to always be displayed no matter where they are in the game. We don't want a bunch of little health bars kind of just floating all over the place. So what if we kind of thought it through and said, well, we want the player to, when he gets close to the enemy, for the health bar to turn on, and when he gets away from the enemy, it turns off. And we can do that. We can use some simple logic to do that. So just think it through. So we need something to trigger. The player is going to be the object that triggers that. So for the enemy itself, so we're going to select our enemy, and what we're going to do is do this as a kind of like a mechanic. I'm going to right click inside on this folder. I'm going to go to Game Creator, and I'm going to go Trigger, and I'm going to rename this to Display Health. Okay. All right. All right, so now we have a trigger called Display Health. And so what I want to do with this is I'm going to go here where it says trigger, and I'm going to go change trigger, and we're going to go object, and we're going to do on player enter. All right, so when the player enters this trigger, it's going to do something. All right, and then I'm going to add another component called trigger, and we're going to do this one, but we're going to do when the player exits, it's going to do something. All right, cool. All right, so on the first one, I'm going to hit this here where it says it's a little icon for actions. I'm going to hit that. And of course, it's going to create automatically, it's going to create a thing for us here. And where is it actually located? And I think I renamed it. So let's make sure that this is named properly. We wanted this called Display Health. Okay, so display, not to be confused with the actual health. All right, and so we have our actions, and I typically like to get rid of these numbers, so I'll just leave that as actions. All right, cool. All right, so what I'll do now is display health. So I'm going to go add action. I'm going to go set active. All right. And we're going to select the health here and we're going to move that into there. All right. So we need that to be active when the player enters into the trigger of the enemy. All right, cool. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my top trigger and I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna create another action. And what I'm gonna name this actions is on and off. So on, and then this one will be called off. All right, and then this one, I'm just going to, again, set active. We're gonna take the health from the dim here, move that there, and we're gonna make it not active. All right, cool. All right, so the only thing we need to do now is test to see that it works. Now, in order for us to make sure it does work, I'm gonna go ahead and actually make the health turn off. So I'm gonna go health, just like that. All right, great. All right, so I'm gonna go play and let's see what happens. All right. And so nothing happened, and you're probably wondering why. And the reason is because I forgot to increase the trigger size. So if you remember, I created a trigger here, and we need something to trigger the enemy, and it's too small for the enemy to actually come inside of that. So what I'm going to do is increase the radius of this to something like 3, right? We can do something like 3, and then I'll go ahead and hit play and see if that is actually working. All right, so we walk over, as you can see, it actually is displaying the enemy's health when we come close and when we get out of it. Great, and if we attack, it's still attacking our enemy, and if we get out, everything is good to go. Perfect. All right, so that's not bad at all. All right, so that is actually pretty good. So what we've been able to do is we have our health bar. We set that up for our enemy to actually reduce the health. We set up the billboard for the UI of that health bar, so it's always facing the camera. And then we have the trigger for the displaying of the health bar. So next, we just need to do that for the spider. And since we did a lot of the work already, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is copy Control D this. So we're going to copy the health and we're going to copy this actual display health trigger. So I'm going to do a Control D for those. And I'm going to go over to my spider and put that in the same location. All right, so I'm going to put that maybe like here. And I'll move this below those so it's consistent. All right, cool. All right, so we have our spider. So the first thing I'm going to do is move it over to where the spider is, and basically reposition everything. So I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to move that over here like so. All right, great. Next, I'm going to go ahead and change the health location because the spider is a bigger creature. So I'm going to move that upwards, just like that. Awesome. All right, cool. All right, and then next, of course, I'm going to change that to health. And change this, get rid of the one on that as well. Perfect. Now what we want to do is go into health and actually change a few things. So the first one, we want to select health. We need to change out the target because remember, this is going to pull the stats from a particular object, and we don't want it to pull the stats from the little red guy here. So let's do that. So what we want to do is move the spider into that slot. We also want to change, I think the bar, because we duplicated, I think that is going to carry over, so we can test that. And then also for the P trail, we want to make sure that that is set as well. So I'm going to move the spider into there. Perfect. And then we need to give the spider some stats. Okay, so I'm just going to type in stats, and we're just going to select our stats. Good to go. And then we can also change the health max for the spider. Bigger object, so let's just give it 200 for now. Great. And I think that's good to go because we do have the canvas, we do have the billboard, everything is still there. I think we're good to go. So let's go ahead and take a look and see if that is working as expected. So I'm going to go ahead and play. And of course, there's one thing I want to do is change the health. So remember where we turned the health on, we need to have that turned off from the initial state there. And there is a little trick we can actually do for that. So, but we can play with that later. All right. So as you can see, we come into that space of them. All right. And now since the spider is bigger, we can actually change the radius for the spider because the spider is so much bigger, but I don't want to get into those details just yet. So I just want to leave that as it is. So let's go ahead and get close to the spider and reduce the health. I missed him completely. All right, let's see. And we're going to deal with this camera soon. So, all right, so we are definitely reducing the health of the spider. Great. And we're also, our health is reducing. So that's great. All right, so hope that was easy enough. Basically, we spent the time in health bar change. We made the health bar work for our enemies. We got the billboard working for the UI for the enemies and the trigger for the enemies as well. Now, some of these can change where we don't know, but this is just some basic functions I think that are super useful. All right. All right. So I'll see you guys in the next video. We'll probably touch on some other aspects of the enemy. Maybe we're going to work on maybe the dying mechanic for them, or maybe we can start thinking about cameras and things like that. All right. All right. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. To stay up to date on the latest 3D platforming tutorial, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support, you can find me on Patreon, or of course you can hit me up on Discord. I like to talk about whatever project you guys are working on. Of course, thanks for hanging with me. Your support is always appreciated. As always, remember, never give up and keep moving forward. Peace.